Hey, I'm going to get started by just welcoming all of you guys. Jai Jian, nice to see you. No, Jai Jian is goodbye, right? Oh, ni hao. Okay, ni hao. So welcome to our class today. Nice to see you guys. So this is our Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment course, where over the next 5 days, I'm going to help you guys to develop a foundation in the path to enlightenment based in the original words of the Buddha. We're going to be starting our class today with meditation so you guys can practice some of the teachings of the Buddha. But then afterwards, I'm going to introduce you to the course so that you understand what it is that you're going to be learning over the coming days. And then ultimately today, we're going to be talking about the life story of the Buddha. I'm going to help you understand what is enlightenment, because this is the mental state that the Buddha guided students to be able to obtain. And then this afternoon, I'm going to teach you the chanting and how to do the chanting prior to the meditation. But let's just get started with some meditation to start our day. The way that I start the meditation is with some chanting. If you'd like to see these chants and chant along, they're on a laminated sheet over there on the cabinet. You're welcome to help yourself to get one if you like. And you're welcome to chant along because it's going to help you get more benefit out of the meditation itself. For anybody who's joining online, you can get these chanting sheets by going to our website, buddhadailywisdom.com. Click on free books and then just scroll down towards the bottom and you'll be able to see the daily chanting sheet there. The chanting during the lifetime of the Buddha was used as a way to help his students commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. This is the way they committed them to their memory. So you can understand from the origins of chanting that this isn't a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer, or anything like that. There's none of those things in the teachings of the Buddha. If you've been exposed to those kinds of things as part of the teachings of the Buddha, those are misunderstandings. The Buddha never taught rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer. So he used chanting as a way to help his students remember the teachings, that every 2 weeks they would recite his teachings and commit them to their memory. If you read the English translations, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of this, I don't think that the Buddha even created these chants himself, because the Buddha wouldn't walk around and say, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me. This would be ego and arrogance if you did this. And by the time somebody gets to enlightenment, they don't have that in their mind. So I suspect that these were created by his students either during his life or after his death, because if you learn from a teacher how to move from anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, and this teacher didn't want anything or expect anything from you, they were helping you to get to this peaceful and joyful mental state, you'd probably have a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for that person too. So that's where I suspect these came from, is actually his students. So we use them as a way to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself, because we have books, we have audiobooks, videos, podcasts, things like this that you can study in order to be able to help you remember the teachings. So if you like to chant these on the way in, you'll get actually more benefit out of the meditation. Once we're in the meditation, I'm going to be giving you some guidance, essentially a little bit of instruction to help you learn meditation while we're actually meditating. In this course, I'm going to be teaching you a class on Tuesday afternoon where we're going to be learning all the ins and outs of meditation. But for today, I'm just going to guide you in the meditation and helping you to kind of learn a little bit about how to meditate while we're actually meditating together. Then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating. Everyone here at the temple and anyone joining us online will all just be meditating. Now, during that time of quietness, I'm sure you'll hear some sounds. You might hear some cars go by or dogs barking, birds chirping. Someone here might cough or sneeze or something like that. This is all normal. If you have a craving for permanent silence in the mind, when you hear a sound, you'll cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated or agitated. This is the mind itself causing these feelings that if you understand the world is impermanent and constantly changing, and it's not possible for you to live in a world where you're in permanent silence, then you can rest at ease in your meditation and just know that the world's functioning the way it's intended to function. These sounds are going to arise, they're going to change, and then they're going to fade away. Then we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting, and then that's where I'll start helping you guys to understand more about the course. In terms of your body position, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. I'm going to teach you all 4 of these as part of this course. But for now, let me just help you with a little bit of guidance on the seated position, because that's usually how people start to learn, is in the seated position. You can sit however you like, whether it's on the floor, in a chair, maybe if you're at home, you're on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair, you can sit however you like. There's not just one fixed way to actually sit. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This will kind of help soften your seat a bit. And if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross leg position, you might just choose to do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, it can impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets your hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it, but it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can sit however you like. It's really up to you. Just one second. I need to fix something here. Okay, the camera was just stuck. Oh, something else happened too. There we go. Okay, so you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. There's not just one way to actually sit in meditation, because it's not about training the body, it's about training the mind. And everything the Buddha taught is all about training the mind. So as long as your body's comfortable, that's what's important. You're not interested in being luxurious or painful, but in the middle where the body can be comfortable. Then you'll be able to actually train the mind. If anybody's in a chair or a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair, you can also sit however you like. You can put your feet flat on the floor. This is the way some people like to do it, or maybe lightly cross at the ankles. But you can see me sitting in a chair with my legs crossed. So this is an option as well. And then someone who's in a chair, they can just put their hands and arms wherever they like as well. In terms of your upper body, it's helpful if this is erect. With the sternum up and the shoulders back, it'll help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. This is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you'd like the mind to be attentive and alert during this meditation. It also helps you by having the sternum up and shoulders back, not only to keep the mind attentive and alert, but to make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So I'm going to start with the chanting. You guys are welcome to join in, and then I'll come back in with the guidance on the meditation. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa สัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสรังโอโตภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well developed, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Potang Mahakawanang Apiwateyami Savakato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusrang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone. Nice to see you here this morning. Welcome to everyone joining online as well. What I'm going to do is introduce you to this course so that you understand what it is that I'm going to be sharing with you over the next 5 days. And then we're going to move into some other talks after that. So first, this course starts at 9 a.m. each day, and we end around 3 o'clock. So sometimes we'll end a little bit earlier, sometimes a little bit later, but generally this is our time frame that we're going to be meeting each day. This is my contact information here. If you guys would like to contact me for any reason, you're more than welcome to. If you're coming to class and you're here, that's great. I'll be able to help you while you're here. But if you're not coming to class, that's okay. You don't have to contact me and tell me you're not coming to class. This is more so for after the course, because as you learn here over the next 5 days, you're going to need continuous help after that. And if you'd like to contact me for any reason, this is the ability to contact me through all these different methods. And this is all available on our website too. You'll be able to see this contact information. In terms of the way the course is structured is each morning we're going to start at 9 a.m. with chanting and meditation. So when you guys come in, just understand that we'll be starting with the chanting and meditation. So you're welcome to get chanting sheets and come on in and start chanting and meditating. So I'll be starting that around 9 o'clock. Then at 9:30, we switch over to sharing some teachings with you guys. Some people refer to this as a Dhamma talk because the word Dhamma means teachings. I think of these more as like discussions where I'm sharing information with you, helping you to be able to understand the teachings. You might be asking me questions to be able to understand the teachings more closely. It's not like a sermon or anything like that. It's not a lecture or anything like that. It's more of me sharing information with you, helping you to understand the teachings of the Buddha and inviting inviting you to examine and investigate those teachings and then reflect on them, to independently verify them, and to practice them. We're going to take a mid-morning break. This usually happens around 10:30 to 11. It fluctuates each day. It's not always the same time, but somewhere around there, we'll take a mid-morning break. Then we'll teach some more up to lunch. And we usually take lunch around 12, sometimes a little bit earlier, sometimes a little bit later. Again, each day it's a little bit different. But each time we go to lunch, I'll let you know what time we're coming back. We normally come back around 1:30, but sometimes depending on when we go to lunch, we might come back a little bit earlier, a little bit later, right? Everything's changing. So this is generally how we structure the course. And when we come back, then I'm going to be sharing some more teachings with you, typically about meditation. That's what we're doing in the afternoon. We're going to be meditating morning. We're going to be meditating in the afternoon as well. But in the afternoon, I'm usually teaching you something about meditation in the afternoon. Then we're going to finish up around 3 p.m. each day. Again, sometimes a little bit earlier, sometimes a little bit later, just depends on what's happening. It's very rare that we go to, 3:15 or 3:30, something like that. It's very rare that that occurs. Normally we finish right around 3 o'clock and sometimes even a little bit earlier. All of this for 4 days is going to be building and building and building, helping you guys to learn the teachings of the Buddha. And then on Friday, I invite you guys out to a field trip. If you'd like to go to some Buddhist temples to be able to see the artwork, the architecture, and the symbolism, I tour students around the 2 different temples. There's a forest temple, and then there's a temple up on the mountain that I take you to. These are 2 different branches of Buddhism in Thailand, and I can tour you around and teach you about the teachings of the Buddha with the artwork, architecture, and symbolism of the temples. It's kind of like a classroom without walls, where you'll be able to glean information about the teachings of the Buddha, because they embed the teachings of the Buddha in the way that they construct the temples. And it's kind of nice to go visit all these different temples, but if you don't know what you're looking at, it's just kind of like, oh, that's pretty, that's beautiful, let me take a picture of that. But you don't really know what it actually is. But if you know what it is, it's like, wow, the temple really comes to life when you walk into a temple. So you'll be able to experience that if you'd like to go on Friday, and you're welcome to go. And if you encounter anybody this week that would like to go, they're more than welcome to go. You don't necessarily have to be here for the entire course to be able to go on the field trip. So if you're like to come, you're welcome. And if you'd like to invite other people to come, you're more than welcome to do that too. So we'll do that on Friday, and I'll give you more details on that as we get closer to it. Kind of on Thursday, I'll let you know more details about how we do that. This course is based on this first book. It's titled Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. I recommend that you get a version of this book, and you can actually get it for free. You can download it from our website. You can take it and go print it yourself if you like. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost. Or if your country has access to Amazon, you can actually get it on Amazon as well. I'm going to be teaching you all these chapters as part of this course. 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 19. So I'll be helping you to be able to understand each one of these. But there's some things that are in the book that aren't in the classes, and there's some things in the classes that aren't in the book. So it's actually helpful for you to be able to learn with the book as well. So if you get a version of this book, it'll really help you and guide you on your journey. This is the kind of book that you're going to read multiple times. It's not the kind of book you just pick up and you read it in 2 weeks and you're done with it. You're going to need to read it multiple times in order to be able to train your mind. There's some students that have been studying with me many, many years, and they tell me they've read this book 8 or 12 times. And they say each time they read it, they glean new insight, new information. It's kind of like a movie. You kind of see things. If you watch it multiple times, you see things that you didn't see the first time. So if you end up getting a version of this book, you'll probably read it more than one time. And you're not reading just for completion to be able to complete the book. You're actually reading to understand, where you can independently verify each aspect of what it is that you're learning about in the book. So you can get it in all of these different ways. The topics that I'm going to be teaching you first this morning, I'm going to be teaching you the life story of Gotama Buddha so that you can understand a bit about his life and what he did during his life. Then I'm going to teach you what is enlightenment, because this is the ultimate goal of his teachings, is to be able to help you get to this enlightened mental state. So I'm going to teach you what this mental state is, because if you're headed towards a certain goal, if you know what that goal is, you'll be more able to readily navigate your way to it. And then once you accomplish the goal, you'll know that you've actually accomplished it. So I'll teach you guys what that is. Tomorrow, in the morning, I'm going to teach you the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. These are the core central teachings of the Buddha. In terms of getting to enlightenment, you're going to need to know this teaching inside and out, backwards and forwards, left, right, like the back of your hand, right? That you're going to need to revisit this multiple times. But on Tuesday, tomorrow morning, I'm going to be starting to help you to understand this teaching using the original words of the Buddha and just slowly walking our way through it so that you can actually independently verify what it is that I'm teaching you about this specific teaching. On Wednesday, I'm going to teach you transforming the three poisons of craving, anger, and ignorance. This is where you understand a high level understanding of what the Buddha discovered in the mind. These are pollutions of the mind that are causing you to experience things like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. And so when you understand what these are, then you can actually eliminate them. So I'm going to explain to you what they are. I'm going to explain to you the symptoms that you experience in your day-to-day life because of having these in your mind. And then I'm going to teach you how to eliminate them out of the mind. On Wednesday morning as well, I'm going to teach you something called the 5 Precepts, a householder's guide to daily practice. If you've heard that the Buddha taught no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying, and no intoxicants, this isn't actually the teachings of the Buddha. That sounds like rules and commandments. It sounds like black and white. The Buddha didn't teach this way. So I'm going to use his original words to help you understand the 5 precepts, and then I'm going to show you how to relate it to your day-to-day life and decisions that you're making on a daily basis so that not only are you learning it, but you know how to apply it in your day-to-day life as well. Then on Thursday, I'm going to be teaching you what is Gamma and how does it affect me. This is a natural law that you need to understand. This is what the mind's awakening to. When we talk about cultivation of wisdom and awakening to enlightenment, it's about cultivating wisdom of this natural law. If you lack wisdom of this natural law, you'll go through the world having all kinds of struggles and difficulties. So when you understand this natural law, you'll be able to navigate the world more peacefully. So I'm going to help you to understand the ins and outs of this natural law. Then we're going to be learning what is merit and how to receive continued support on the path to enlightenment. Merit is a unique type of wholesome Gamma that you're going to need to understand what it is so you can generate this. So I'll explain to you guys what that is and then help you to understand how to get continued help on the path to enlightenment, because nobody's going to get to enlightenment in 5 days, right? This 5-day course, it's not going to happen that way. It's going to take you multiple years to get to enlightenment, but it's through gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress that you'll gradually see that your mind's moving closer and closer to this mental state. Then in terms of meditation, we're going to be really focusing on breathing mindfulness meditation. This is a primary form of meditation that the Buddha taught in order to help him get to enlightenment. There's other meditations that he taught too, which you'll definitely learn in your journey to enlightenment. All the various courses and retreats that I share, I help you to understand all 4 of the meditations that he taught. But in terms of developing a foundation to understand what it is that you need for meditation, it's this meditation that you'd like to start with. And that's the meditation we just did. But I'm going to teach you the ins and outs of this on Tuesday afternoon. You're going to have an opportunity to do meditation with me 3 times before I actually teach it to you in detail. That way you'll have some experience to know a little bit about what it is before we actually start talking about it and teaching it to you. Then I'm going to teach it to you in the seated, lying, standing, and walking positions, because you're going to need these different positions at different times because your body can't be in the same position permanently. And then you're going to learn Buddhist chanting as well. This afternoon, I'm going to teach you this so that you can understand the Buddhist chanting. We'll walk you through helping you to learn that. Then ultimately, by the end of the course, I'm going to teach you how to integrate everything that you've learned into your day-to-day life. Because if we spend 5 days together and you learn the certain teachings here, okay, great, you learned the teachings, that's fine, we had a great time together. But in terms of getting the real impact and the real benefit of our time together, you'd like to integrate these teachings into your day-to-day life. That's where you're going to get the real benefit. So I'm going to show you how to do that as part of the course as well. So do you guys have any questions on what's involved in the course? Anything you'd like to ask? No questions? Okay, let me see if we have any questions online. Okay, I don't see any questions online either. Okay, so now let's move to our first topic, which in the book is titled The Difficult Human Existence, Sickness, Aging, and Death. This is chapter 19. This is where I share the life story of the Buddha. And we focus around sickness, aging, and death because these are some of the motivators that motivated Siddhartha Gotama to go on this journey to enlightenment. And this is a very difficult time for a lot of people in their life, is when they're experiencing sickness, aging, and death, or the people around them are experiencing sickness, aging, and death. You might have a lot of stress and anxiety or fear or frustration around these periods of time. So I'm going to share with you the life story of the Buddha in terms of his birth, his early life, the journey to enlightenment, his teaching career, but then ultimately we're going to circle back and talk about sickness, aging, and death and why these things are occurring and how you can deal with it more peacefully where you don't have to have frustration and agitation when you're experiencing these things. As we go, I open up for questions typically when I'm teaching at different times. You guys are welcome to ask any and all questions that you like. Here at the temple, we have microphones in the middle of the room. If you get a microphone and you press the gray button, you'll see the lights come on and you can just hold this up to your chin and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then you can keep these microphones with you because you might have more than one question or someone around you might have a question and you can share it with them. And then if you're not using the microphone, if you could just turn it off, that will be sure that we don't get any feedback through the speakers. Then for anybody who's online, if you guys would like to ask questions, you can put that into the comment section of Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask any and all questions you like that way. So typically, I do pause at different times for questions, but with this particular topic, it's better to just teach the whole life story of the Buddha and then open up for questions at the end. So this individual who we refer to as the Buddha or Gotama Buddha, there's other ways to refer to him as well. He started out in life as Siddhartha Gotama. That was his name. He was born into a royal family. His mother was a queen, his dad was a king. And during this time frame, if you were pregnant as a woman living with your husband, they would take you back to your homeland in order to be able to deliver your baby, because then you could be close to your parents, your brothers and sisters. People would help you to be able to deliver the baby and actually take care of it. So the Siddhartha Gautama's mother, when she was close to delivery, they organized a caravan in order to take her back to her homeland. And when she was on her journey back to her homeland, she goes into labor pains and she starts to have pain from labor. And she gets out of the caravan and she goes over to this tree and she's holding on to the branch of a tree, trying to deliver the baby from the standing position because it was having trouble coming out. And eventually the baby ends up breaking through the side of her stomach and it comes out from the side of her stomach. And she ends up dying 7 days after this. Now today we would just do a C-section and everything would be fine. But 2,500 years ago, they didn't have that technology. So when the baby broke through the side of the stomach, 7 days later, she actually died. And this was not uncommon during that time frame, that women would often die during childbirth or the babies could die during childbirth. And they had protocols in place for this. That's how common it was, is that if you had siblings, that if you died during childbirth, then your siblings would adopt your child as their own. So Siddhartha Gautama's mother had an older sister who ended up adopting him as her own child. So his aunt became his stepmother during his lifetime. Now, during his birth, there's something that is described in the original teachings that occurred. I don't know that this occurred, but I don't know that it didn't occur either. I suspect that it didn't occur, but I'll share with you what is said that have occurred at the time of his birth. It's said that he walked 7 steps right after he was born, and lotus flowers were blossoming under his feet, and he spoke and he said, "This will be my last birth." I don't think that this is actually true, because if this is true, the next part of the story wouldn't actually be needed. So the next part of the story is that the father, being interested to know what his son was going to become, he summoned advisors to be able to come help him to understand what his son was going to become. This was a common practice during this time frame, that you would essentially ask fortune tellers to come help you to understand what it is that your child was going to become. Well, if your child is walking and talking and lotus flowers are blossoming under their feet, you don't need anybody to tell you what this child's going to become. You already know. right? So that's why I suspect that part of the story isn't needed. Sometimes when somebody's done something really wonderful, like the Buddha did during his lifetime, as the stories are handed down from generation to generation, people kind of embellish the stories to make him look even better than he already was. But we don't need to embellish the story of a Buddha, right? He already did something very wonderful and very amazing. He got to enlightenment by himself, and he helped countless people get to enlightenment. So we don't need to embellish his story. But I wasn't there, so I don't know whether this occurred or not, but I suspect that it did not occur. So his father, having summoned these advisors to come help him to understand what his son was going to become, he heard from 107 advisors that his son was going to become this great monarch and this great ruler, and he was going to expand his territory far and wide. And of course, his father's like, that's my boy. All right. Right. But there was this one advisor who came in at the end, 108th advisor. And he came in and he apologized to the king. And he said, "Dear sir, I'm so sorry." He said, I heard all the other advisors and what they had to share, but I have something to share with you that's opposite of these advisors, that they are true that your son is going to be a great leader, but he's not going to be a monarch. He's not going to be a king. He's not going to expand your territory. He's actually going to be a spiritual leader. And his father didn't like that. So his father decided he was going to sequester his son in the palace and keep him there, not allowing him to go outside the palace, because he thought that if he went outside the palace and got involved in worldly affairs, that he would be interested to be a spiritual leader rather than a monarch. So he kept him in the palace his entire life. He lavished him with all the things you can imagine that a king could give to their son. He gave him wonderful fabrics to wear as clothing, gave him outstanding food, gave him entertainment, beautiful women bathing him and taking care of him. He was trying to woo him into the ways of being a monarch, kind of getting his mind attached to this lifestyle, because he knew that he wouldn't be able to get this lifestyle any other way. So he thought that if he kind of like indulged him with all these things, that his son would never leave to do something else other than be a monarch. But at the age of 29, Siddhartha Gotama realized he was about to become the king, because during this time frame, you would become the king when you turned 30, and your father would retire, and then your father would help you to be able to learn how to be a better and better king. So at the age of 29, realizing he was about to become the king and he's never been outside the palace, he was like, how could I rule over these people if I've never even been outside the palace? I've never even been in the kingdom other than inside the palace. So he was curious, and he decided he was going to go outside the palace into the kingdom and see what the kingdom was all about. So he leaves outside of the palace against his father's knowledge and without his understanding that that's what he was doing. And he takes with him his royal attendant, kind of like his chief of staff. And he goes out of the palace with this person. And this advisor is with him. And when Siddhartha Gotama goes outside the palace, he has what's called the 4 observations. And these are the things that ultimately motivated him for his journey to go on to enlightenment. The first observation that he has is a sickly person, someone who's sick and ill. And this person's family around them and the person themselves were disgruntled and irritated and annoyed. And Siddhartha Gotama didn't understand why. He needed to turn to his royal attendant and ask his royal attendant, like, what's going on over there? Why are those people like that? And he said, oh, that person is sick and they can't work and they're going to have difficulties to provide for their life, to be able to have food and shelter and clothing and medical care and things like this. And this was really impactful to Siddhartha Gotama's mind, because his life of luxury, he didn't have that. He never had that experience of not being able to have food. Because if you grew up for 29 years in a palace and that's the way you grew up, you'd probably think everybody grew up that way. So now when he saw this person really struggling in life, it was really impactful to him. Then he sees this aging person, kind of an older, decrepit person with their, difficulties walking and difficulties moving around and their bones protruding. And he needed to ask his royal attendant what was going on over there, because this person too was grumpy and irritable and annoyed. And the royal attendant was like, oh, this person's getting old and they're not going to be able to work and sustain their life so easily, and their family's not going to be able to get the things that they need. So Siddhartha Gotama once again was impacted by this, because he was living this life of luxury. Then he sees a dead corpse. this individual had died, and the family was grieving and sorrowful around this person. And once again, he turns to his royal attendant and says, "What's going on over there?" And it's the same story. These people are going to have a difficult time to be able to acquire the resources that they need in order to sustain their life. So Siddhartha Gautama was very impacted by this. And he considers that the kingdom is full of misery and despair. And he ends up seeing this fourth observation. This fourth observation is that he sees somebody meditating and trying to train their mind. And he asks the royal attendant, like, "What's going on over there? What is that person doing?" And he's like, "That person is trying to figure out all of this. They're trying to figure out why there's sickness, aging, and death, and why people are so miserable during these time frame." And Siddhartha Gautama decides that that's what he would like to do. That he wasn't interested in ruling over misery and despair. He was interested in helping people to escape that. And he felt like if he became the king, he would just be ruling over misery and despair. But instead, he was interested in trying to figure out how to help the people escape that. So he decides he's going to go off and try to figure out how to eliminate sickness, aging, and death, and the disgruntledness and the discontentedness that is experienced during this time frame. So he goes back to the royal palace, and by this time it's nighttime. He was married and he had a young child, a young infant child, and they were actually sleeping. And he already knew that he was going to leave the palace, but he decided not to wake them up and to not tell them that he was leaving, because he didn't understand his mind as well as he would later in life when he trained his mind. But he understood his mind enough that he felt like if he woke up his wife and his child, that he wouldn't be able to leave, that it would be too strong of a hold on him and he wouldn't be able to leave out of the palace. So he just kind of looks in on them and then just kind of leaves out of the palace. And he takes with him his favorite horse and his royal attendant, and he leaves out of the palace. And then as he leaves out of the palace, he eventually gets to a point in his journey that he tells his royal attendant, like, "Hey, you've been great. You've been wonderful. I don't need you anymore. You can leave." And he lets go of his horse. He tells his royal attendant that he can go, and he cuts off his hair. At this time, if you were a member of the royal family, you would grow your hair very long, even the males. This is the way that they knew that you were a member of the royal family. Where today, we put the picture of the king and the queen and everybody else all over the kingdom and put it on our money and everything else, and that's how we know who's the royalty, who's the monarch, right? But during the lifetime of the Buddha, they didn't have that technology. So if you had this long, beautiful, flowing hair, they knew that you were a member of the royal family. Because those people who were laborers and working out in the fields, you couldn't have long, beautiful, flowing hair because you didn't have the time to take care of it. But the royal family had time to sit around, had servants detangling their hair, brushing and combing their hair, shampooing their hair, things like this. So if you went out into the kingdom with this long, beautiful, flowing hair, they knew you were a member of the royal family. So cutting off his hair was like, I'm never going back, never going to go back, because no one would ever think that he was actually the king if he didn't have this long, beautiful, flowing hair. And he had been growing it for 29 years. So cutting it off was like, I'm never going back. He ends up taking up training with two teachers. The first teacher was claiming that they knew how to get to enlightenment. So Siddhartha Gautama decides to train with this teacher. This teacher trains him to hang himself upside down from trees, to lay on beds of nails, to starve his body from food, to pierce his body with metal implements. The thought was that if you could cause pain to the physical body and you could overcome that pain, that then you would actually be able to get to enlightenment. So he trains with this person for an entire year. When he gets to the end of the 1 year, the teacher comes to him and says, "You've mastered my teachings. You can now share my teachings." And Siddhartha Gautama realized his mind wasn't any more peaceful than it was when he was in the palace. So he gets frustrated with the whole situation and he goes to another teacher. And then he studies with that teacher, because that teacher was also claiming that they could get to enlightenment and they knew how to get to enlightenment. So Siddhartha Gautama studies with this teacher for about a year. And once again, hanging himself upside down from trees, laying on beds of nails, doing things like this and some other things too, but essentially the same things. And he gets to the 1 year mark and the teacher comes to him and says, "You've mastered my teachings." And the Buddha realized he wasn't a Buddha yet, but Siddhartha Gautama realized that his mind wasn't any more peaceful than it was when he was in the palace palace. So he feels like he had wasted his time for 2 years studying with these people. So he decides to leave from these individuals and go off on his own and try to be able to get to enlightenment by himself. And he's studying, or at least he's training his mind in the forest. He goes off in the forest and he continues to do the things that he was doing initially with these two teachers. He was starving himself. He was doing all these disparaging things. He took this so far that he was only eating 1 grain of rice per day. That's how he was sustaining himself. And he was actually getting to the point where he was about to die. His ribs were protruding. He was just skin and bones, essentially. And he was sitting on the edge of the forest meditating. And there was a mother and young child that comes by. And they see him meditating, and he's just basically skin and bones. And they go to him and they beg and plead with him to eat some rice. And he decides reluctantly in that situation to start eating some rice. And he realizes in that moment that what he had been doing wasn't the way to enlightenment. That when he was in the royal palace, he was living this life of sensual pleasures. He had everything and anything you could imagine in terms of food and entertainment and fabrics and everything. But when he left the royal palace, he swung all the way over to the other side, where he was eating just 1 grain of rice per day and disparaging the body. And in this moment, he has this realization that there's this middle way, and that's what he should be doing, is practicing this middle way, not indulging in things, but not disparaging the body either. And this is where his training really starts to accelerate. This is where he develops what we refer to as the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is the core central teaching of the Buddha that's going to guide you to enlightenment. And he develops this and he trains his own mind through this path, and it actually produces enlightenment over the next 4 years. So a total of 6 years that it takes him to be able to get to enlightenment. And he knows he got to enlightenment because his mind's completely peaceful and joyful. He doesn't experience any discontent feelings any longer. There's no anger, there's no sadness or frustration or any of these other discontent feelings. But he understands that his teachings are radically different than anybody else who was teaching at the time. And he knew that he was interested in teaching, but he wasn't quite sure whether the world was ready for what it was that he had to share, because everybody else was hanging themselves upside down from trees and laying on beds of nails, and everything that he was going to teach was all about training of the mind. So he goes to this tree and he hangs out at this tree for about 7 weeks, contemplating whether or not he should actually share his teachings. This region of the world that he was in, we refer to it as Northeast India in Nepal. He was born in Nepal, and then he basically spent time teaching and sharing the teachings in Northeast India. But that line that is separating India and Nepal didn't exist during the lifetime of the Buddha. So he hangs out at this tree for 7 weeks, trying to decide whether or not he's going to go back to the royal palace or if he's going to share his teachings. And ultimately, he decides he's going to share his teachings. So he decides to go back to the area where he was studying with those first 2 teachers. And as he goes back to that area, he encounters 4 of his previous classmates and 1 of his previous teachers. And when he encounters these people, they start laughing at him. They start joking him and mocking him because they see him coming, and he's really bright. He's really vibrant. He's got meat on his bones. He looks healthy. Then they thought in order to get to enlightenment, you needed to be disparaging the body. And they saw that he looked so healthy and bright and vibrant, and they thought he had given up on the path to enlightenment. So they start laughing at him and joking him and mocking him. But by the time you get to enlightenment, that doesn't affect your mind. So Siddhartha Gotama, the Buddha, comes over to where they are, and he sits down on the ground, and he takes his hand and he touches the earth. This is the one and only miracle that he ever performs, where when he touches the earth, these animals come to where he's at. So squirrels and deer and birds and lizards and turtles, they all come to where he's at. And these 5 people saw this miracle and they were like, okay, you've got my attention. Like, what do you have to share? And they sit down and he shares with them what's called the 4 Noble Truths. This is what you're going to be learning tomorrow. In 4 simple statements, he explains the problem in the mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And the way that the teachings of a Buddha work is that they're independently verifiable. So when he shared these 4 statements, the people were able to independently verify the truth, that his teachings were true, and they knew that he had figured out how to get to enlightenment. And you'll be able to do this tomorrow too. When I'm teaching you the Four Noble Truths, you'll be able to independently verify that they're true. Right? So from that point forward, he starts to share his teachings, and more people start to be able to study with him and actually get to enlightenment. By the time he dies at the age of 80, there are countless people that have gotten to enlightenment during his lifetime. So this is what a Buddha does, is they get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. Then they dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings, and countless people get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. Then they preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. And this is the criteria of what makes Gotama Buddha a Buddha, is that he meets all three criteria. He taught from the age of 35 to the age of 80. He ends up dying at the age of 80 from old age. There's myths out there that you'll hear people tell you that he died from eating a poisonous sandwich. This is actually not true, because what people say is that he was at a party, he was at some event, and there was this poisonous sandwich on the table, and he knew it was poisonous and he wasn't interested in anybody else eating it, so he ate it himself. That's just silly, right? Like, if you were at a party and you knew there was a poisonous sandwich on the table, what would you do? You'd throw it away, right? You'd probably bury it so that nobody gets any access to it. This person who was super wise, like the Buddha, he's not going to eat a poisonous sandwich. That's committing suicide. An enlightened being isn't going to commit suicide. But sometimes people believe these kinds of things, and the story gets propagated from person to person to person. There's no evidence that the Buddha ate a poisonous sandwich and that's how he died. Instead, he died of old age. You can see it in the teachings, and you can see that the way that he died, because it's depicted very clearly in the original teachings. So this is the life story of the Buddha. He taught many people, and from 2,500 years ago when he died, by the way, he was born in 563 BC and he died in 483 BC. And from that period of time, 2,500 years ago, his teachings have been shared all over the world, and now there's millions and millions of people who are learning and practicing his teachings. So it's this individual, Siddhartha Gotama, who we refer to as the Buddha, that everybody is talking about, and this is kind of an outline of his life story. Now, this sickness, aging, and death is what motivated him on this journey to be able to go off and figure out how to get to enlightenment. And what he discovered is that the reason why people are so disgruntled and agitated and annoyed when they're sick is that they're craving permanent health, that they want this body to be permanently healthy, but this body can't be permanently healthy. It's not possible, because we live in an impermanent world. This body's going to experience sickness. And then when an individual is aging and they're disgruntled and agitated about that, that's because the mind's craving permanent youthfulness. When we can't experience permanent youthfulness, we're going to get wrinkles, we're going to get gray hair, our hair is going to fall out, we're going to get extra fat here and there. It happens, right? This is how the body ages. But if you crave permanent youthfulness, as you age, you won't like that. You're not going to be able to move around as easily as you get older, right? That we all are going to experience that. And then the same thing with death. The disgruntledness, the sorrow, the sadness that is occurring at death. This is because the mind is craving permanent life. For your life, as you get closer and closer to death, if you're craving permanent life, it'll be a very painful death because your mind won't want to let go. Or the people around you, when they're dying, you'll have sorrow and grief because you're craving for them to be permanent in your life, when in reality, the world is full of impermanence. So that's what he discovers about this. And he discovers that the reason why we experience sickness, aging, and death is because of birth. If it wasn't for birth, we wouldn't experience sickness, aging, and death. But because we're born, we are all going to experience sickness, aging, and death. There's no way around that. As long as there's birth, that's the cause and condition that produces sickness, aging, and death. Okay? So do you guys have any questions on the life story of the Buddha? Anything you'd like to ask? Remember, you guys can use the mics here, and then online you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. No questions? You have a question? Yes, ma'am. If you could get a microphone, that would be great. You guys can keep these with you.
It's a very basic question, like, is a Buddha a title, or is multiple Buddha many Buddhas? Why he is special, or he is the first one? I mean, just the Buddhism whole system, I'm very lack of knowledge.
Sure. So a Buddha is very rare in the world. The last one that the world's currently aware of existed over 2,500 years ago. There's some people that will tell you that everybody is a Buddha, but this isn't true. The Buddha never said that. The Buddha explained how rare it is for a Buddha to exist in the world. A Buddha meets those three primary criteria, is that they get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. You're going to need teachers and guides. You're not going to be able to figure it out for yourself. Then they dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings with countless people. And then countless people get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. Then they will preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. So these are the three main criteria of what makes a Buddha a Buddha. And the reason why they can get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of teachers or guides is because they have one quality of mind that nobody else has. This quality of mind is that they have an unlimited capacity to remember things during their current life and their previous lives. So like right now, if I asked you about your childhood, you could probably tell me a few things about your childhood. You probably have spotty memories about that. That's because you have a certain limited capacity in your mind, kind of like a hard drive, 500 gigabytes or 1 terabyte, right? So as you experience life and you're experiencing new things, you're needing to store that in your mind. So you need to delete old files in order to store these new files. So you probably remember the last 5 or 10 years pretty well about what's been going on in your life. But prior to that, you don't have a whole lot of deep memories. An individual who is going to become a Buddha, even in the unenlightened state, they have a very deep, profound memory. They can remember countless details about their current life and their past lives too. And they accumulate all this wisdom in their last life in order to be able to get to enlightenment without the help of teachers or guides. So they have an unlimited capacity to be able to store information. And that's how they are able to get to enlightenment without the help of any teachers or any guides. Mm-hmm. And it's very rare for that type of person to exist in the world. Yeah, once you press the button, you don't have to hold it while you talk, but once you press it, the lights will come on. You just need to wait a second or two for it to engage.
Okay. So to my understanding, so any enlightened, like you just described, like any enlightened person can't be a Buddha, right? But when you're talking about this Gotama Buddha, that's a real person, right?
So if I understand your question right, everybody and anybody can get to enlightenment, but at that point they wouldn't be considered a Buddha, that you would be an enlightened being. But a Buddha is a unique and rare individual. They're both enlightened. It's just a matter of how they did it. A Buddha is going to do it by themselves, and they're going to dedicate their life to sharing their teachings, and they're going to preserve their teachings as well. Where for you, like if you get to enlightenment, you might decide to be a politician or a taxi driver, or who knows what you might decide to do. You may or may not even be a teacher. So every enlightened being isn't going to do the same things as a Buddha. They're not going to get to enlightenment in the same way as a Buddha.
Okay. But when you share the life story of Gotama Buddha, which is like born 2,500 years ago from this king family, that is just... We are talking about that one person, not a real person, right?
Yes, it's a real person.
That's
who
a real
existed.
person.
Yeah,
okay.
A human being.
So in terms of like, we have like Tibetan Buddhism, Thailand Buddhism, they're all talking about that particular, it's the same person.
Yeah, they're talking...
Who is the origin, who started, found all this noble truths in the past and shared the knowledge to everybody else. It's all from this origin of this Buddhism. Is that one person?
Yes.
Born 2,500 years ago?
Yes.
Okay.
But all those different traditions that you mentioned there, their understanding of the teachings is different.
It's different.
They're different branches. There can't be all those different branches of Buddhism because there was only one Buddha, and it's his teachings that actually lead to enlightenment. But over 2,500 years of history, people have changed his teachings. So that's why you see so many different branches. You'll see over 200 different branches of Buddhism with three main schools. But I wouldn't even refer to all these things as Buddhism, because a lot of these things integrate rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer into what they're doing. As soon as you see that, it's actually not the teachings of the Buddha, because the Buddha never taught any rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer. So a lot of times people are misunderstanding what he taught, and they're doing those rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer. So what you would like to do in order to be able to experience the same mental state as the Buddha is get back to his original teachings of what did he originally teach. And then you don't believe those teachings. You learn them, examine them, investigate them. You reflect on them to independently verify whether they're true or false. And then you practice his teachings, integrating them into your life, training your mind, and uprooting the pollutions out of the mind. And that's where you'll experience more and more of the qualities of enlightenment.
Okay,
But yeah, it's the same person they're all referring to. But it's just that their understanding of his teachings is different from place to place. Even sometimes from temple to temple, they will explain things differently.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I don't see any questions online. So it's now 10:15, and this is where I normally take our first break, a mid-morning break, to be able to give you guys a chance to stretch your legs, use the bathroom, get some snacks, get to meet each other and talk if you'd like. And then after we come back from our break, I'm going to teach you what is enlightenment. This is the mental state that the Buddha taught to be able to obtain. And since you're interested in considering journeying on the path to enlightenment, you need to know what this mental state is. So I'm going to help you to understand what this mental state is after our break. So since it's 10:15, if you guys would like to take a 20-minute break, that'll take you up to 10:35. Let's just make it even, actually. Let's just say 10:40. That'll give you a 25-minute break. So enjoy your break, and we'll come back at 10:40. Okay? So thank you guys for your interest to learn, and enjoy spending time with each other and getting some snacks or whatever you choose to do.